Hey everybody, Kenny here. So a few things before we get started. First is that, as you can see, I'm recording this before the reveal of the new league. So whatever the new league is going to be is irrelevant to the builds that I'm presenting. Second is that this is going to be the first set of videos that I'm going to be recording without my noise gate. So I'm not sure how this is going to end up sounding. So these are kind of an experiment, just to see like if it's okay for me to record this way now. Also, as always, this is a very casual Path of Exile channel. I do not make builds for people who plan on dumping hundreds of hours into a single league. This is not the content for you. Like, you know, there's plenty of people out there who make that kind of content. I'm not one of them. I make builds for people who only really have like maybe 30 plus hours to spend on a league. And, you know, if they're like really addicted to it, maybe they'll do a full 100 hours in a single league. You know, like that's really the like the people that I'm making this for. Like people who, you know, they don't really have the time to go and like look up like, you know, oh, what skills are doing something that I might want to play around with. You know, like that's really what my builds are for. Like it is not for the really hardcore audience. And with that out of the way, let's get on with the premise for this series of builds. So ever since they've been added to the game, I have been on the hunt for the new transfigured gems. You know, I just do regular runs of the labyrinth whenever I have a little time. So as of this recording, I have about 2/3 to 3/4 of all of the transfigured gems that are currently in the game. And all of these builds are going to be based around the ones that I found to be the most interesting that I played around with. And with that, let's move on to the build. So fortunately, since I posted my first video of this league on a Friday, that gave me enough time to have actually seen that video and heard what the video sounded like without my noise gate on it. So I will never be turning that filter off again. I'm going to put this little bit in just to let you know that the sound won't be like that one, or my voice. I've had to re-record all of my build explanation sections. That way I can make sure that it's as good as it can be. And I hopefully added a noise gate kind of effect to the disclaimers at the start of the video. So hopefully that sounds a bit better than it did in the double build video that I did. I just want to keep this in for the last two videos in this series so that you understand why it is that the first video and the second two videos sounded very different. So, unlike the other builds in this series, the reason that I put this character together was only partly because of the fact that I was very interested in trying out the new Transfigured Gem. Well, the Transfigured Gem that was new as of the Necropolis League, a Tornado of Elemental Turbulence. And the reason I was interested in this is because it is a prismatic gem. And if it's prismatic, that means that the damage type that is dealt by the attack is random. So it'll be one of the 3 elemental types, but which of the 3 is determined somewhat randomly. Like, there is some way to guarantee what it's going to be with certain prismatic skills, but the goal here was to make a skill as powerful as it could be, or make this skill as powerful as it could be, like without any need for like external modifiers, I would say. And so for that, I picked my Inquisitor for the experiment because the Inquisitor is kind of a like new player damage hack. Like if you're new to Path of Exile, this is the character you want to play as if you want to see what playing a character with big damage is without really having to learn the core mechanics right away. Like, it's the easiest to get around that baseline. And the reason for that is that in the Inquisitor Ascendancy, there is Instruments of Virtue. And what Instruments of Virtue does is, while that top stanza says you gain more attack damage for each non-instant spell you cast, when you cast your spells, you make it that you can do an attack and the attack will be stronger. Like, that isn't the reason for Instruments of Virtue. The reason for Instruments of Virtue is that stanza right below it, where it says Battle Mage. Whereas at the bottom, you can see that you gain added spell damage equal to the damage of your main hand weapon. Essentially, if you were to have a very powerful two-handed weapon, then all of the damage on your two-handed weapon would be converted into the spell damage for whatever spell you were casting. So it's a very easy way to have added spell damage. And added spell damage for any kind of spell damage build is very important. Like we can see for Tornado of Elemental Turbulence, the effective of added damage isn't all that much. It's only 65%. I don't know the full range on the added damage for it, but it's not a huge amount. But if we were to look at Lightning Tendrils, we can see that the effect of the added damage is 130%. And we can see that for about Toxic Burst, the effect of the added damage is 230%. So depending on the spell you pick for your build, you can get a tremendous amount of additional damage just from the fact that this one upgrade to your Ascendancy just gives you flat spell damage, just a very large amount of flat spell damage that can easily give you tremendous amounts of additional damage. And while I'm running this 6-piece chest plate here in order to kind of give the skill like as many bonuses as possible, this isn't really a 6-link setup that I'm using. Now, the only ports that I'm using for my Tornado of Elemental Turbulence that actually matter are that I'm supporting it with Prismatic Burst, which is a support skill that is itself an active skill that, as you can see, has its own cooldown time and cast time and own effectiveness of added damage, but it's also a prismatic skill. So if you're using a prismatic skill and you add Prismatic Burst to that skill, then you're essentially casting this along with your prismatic skill, because a prismatic skill doesn't necessarily have to be a spell skill. There are prismatic skills that are attack skills, so it will support whatever the prismatic skill you're using. But essentially, you'll cast this along with whatever it is, as long as it's not on cooldown. So this is a very easy way to add a nice amount of damage. And if you do what I did here, where I'm wearing a one-handed weapon with a shield, I did this very specifically because even though I mentioned that having a two-handed weapon would get you a very large bonus to your spell damage, what having a one-handed weapon with a good amount of damage on it does for you is that it allows you to use the spell blade support. Spell blade will only work if you're using a one-handed weapon. And what this essentially does is it gives you two different sources of battle mage. So you have your like full battle mage, which is all of your weapon damage is applied to the applied as spell damage. Then you have this kind of weaker form of battle mage, which is doing essentially the same thing. So if we look at our spell, see that it's saying 9,500 for the spell. Take this off, 7,200 now. So it's a very nice amount of additional damage that we're getting for having that. But the other supports we have here, the added cold damage, volatility, increased critical damage support, like these don't actually matter. Like, we're gonna see that it's gonna make a difference if we take those off. So that it goes down to 8,200. Take off the cold, goes down to 7,300 if I take off the critical damage. It goes down to basically nothing if I take off the volatility. To be honest, like the only reason the volatility was on there is because I had that from when the gem was first added. And the only reason that it's still there is because I couldn't be bothered to go and get the gem that would have actually been good for this slot, which would have been an increased duration. Increased duration would have been very good because this is a duration skill. Now, the tornadoes go out, they last a certain amount of time. So if you have increased duration, then it lasts even longer and you get more value out of the spell. But I couldn't be bothered. So if you want to do an actual proper like 4-link setup for this, then I recommend using increased duration instead of volatility. Yeah, so it was basically like this isn't even really part of the setup. So so you don't need to have an added cold damage, you don't need to have an increased critical damage support, you don't need to have volatility. Like this is really just these 3 gems are the only things that are really making a huge difference here. And mind you, like this is technically a crit damage build. Like critical damage does play a very big part of this, but not as big a part as it could. Like I'm not really invested in critical damage here. It's mainly that by dealing critical damage, we deal the most amount of damage. Which I know sounds, well, obviously, if you're dealing a critical hit, you're going to deal more damage than dealing a non-critical hit. And yeah, sure. But as an Inquisitor, go down this line here. While getting Righteous Providence is nice, because it makes it that your strength and intelligence add to your critical strike chance. Like, while that's really nice, like what the main reason for this is that by getting to Inevitable Judgment, if you crit, you ignore all monster elemental resistances. So right away, if it's not a crit, then you're still penetrating some resistance. And if it is a crit, then you're just ignoring their resistance entirely. Every time you crit, you are dealing maximum damage. So it's just, this is like this entire class, Ascendancy for the Templar, is the most new player friendly build that there is, because it's just, hey, do you want to do more damage? Here's more damage. You can just have it. It's free for you. Like as far as like the build goes, I literally just went all damage. Like, there's some defenses here. We have some health. We have a little bit of defenses from here. So we have some armor, some energy shield, some armor and energy shield. We got the mastery to increase the amount of armor and energy shield from our body armor if we're wearing helmet, gloves, and boots that all have armor and energy shield on them. But that's really it as far as our defenses go. Because everything else is just damage. Grabbed all of the damage from here. Some health and energy shield there, but mostly grabbing as many stats as we can, because the more intelligence and strength we have, the more crit chance we have. And going straight through here, more stats. Going in straight into the shadow area for more damage, more elemental damage, more full-on damage, more crit chance, more crit multiplier, some more physical damage, and into some health. So like we were going for all the damage, just all the damage. All I did for this. And the reason for that is because as a Prismatic skill, specifically as by turning Tornado into a Prismatic skill, we're able to take advantage of a double dipping strategy that is only available in some cases. So basically what's happening here is the reason that I made sure to invest in damage, physical damage, and elemental damage in the tree is because Tornado is a physical damage skill. That is the base thing, is that see that Tornado deals that amount of physical damage. That first stanza there deals physical damage. But 100% of the physical damage is converted into fire, cold, or lightning. So by doing that, what's happening is that we are first increasing all of the physical damage using our bonuses to physical damage that are in our tree. Then we are converting that into elemental damage, which is then being increased by all of our elemental damage that's in our tree. So we're getting a double dip on our bonuses to this skill, which makes it that why it is so tremendously, powerful as it is. But this video, unlike the other ones, this one is more of a showcase of the new player friendly capabilities of the Inquisitor than it is really of the Tornado of Elemental Turbulence. Because while Tornado of Elemental Turbulence is very cool because of the fact that you can do what I did here isn't really something that you'd want to do. Just because it's as you're leveling, in order to make the traversal from Templar to Shadow, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work to get from Templar to Shadow if you're leveling. Because you're getting a good amount of damage from here, then you're getting good amount of damage from here, but you have to get from here to here in order to really start benefiting from what I did here. So you're better off, if you want to take full advantage of what I'm doing here, you're better off focusing. Go full elemental, go full physical, dealer's choice, but this is a very nice way to just get yourself an introductory build into Path of Exile to really get your feet wet. Because, like I said, you get all the damage without needing to have anything crazy. This is not a super overpowered one-handed weapon. This is a pretty good one-handed weapon. I crafted on some extra physical damage just to make sure that it was as high as possible. And, it has a nice bonus to lightning damage on it. But, you could have a full physical weapon, one or two-handed weapon. Mind you, personally, I feel that this is such an incredibly powerful synergy, just having Spellblade, being able to do Spellblade with Battle Mage. Mind you, Spellblade, this isn't something you'll have access to right away. I think it's one of the Act 4 gems, so you won't have access to support until Act 4, but by being able to stack those two things, you will have a very powerful spell that will do a lot of work for you in the early game and beyond. Because you can see, in maps, that it clears. That is a very powerful skill. But you could pick any spell in the game and do what I did there. It's just that, what I wanted to show was how you could go, if you wanted to, fully invest in damage and do something nutso with the Tornado of Turbulence. Or you could go and do a full fire build and just pick any of the really good ranged fire attacks, because this is something that if you're fully invested in damage, you're not fully invested in defenses, which is why the way you saw me playing is that I set off the tornadoes, I check if there's some enemies around. Second that the tornadoes lock on, I run away. This character, even though, this is an okay best piece, okay. This character is not set up for defense. They are not. They don't even have all of their resistances. They are not doing well in terms of what would happen if they got hit, which is why I tried to invest as much in health as I could with what points I had that weren't invested into damage. This is a very squishy boy. But, you can, you can go and be more, if you don't go and traverse all the way over to the battle area, then you can be way more tankier than what I have going here and still get a very good amount of damage by focusing on a specific type of damage, as opposed to trying to get all of the different elemental damages and physical damages and regular damage bonuses just to enhance a single skill that happens to be benefited by having all of those. Just to quickly go over like the other skills that this character has. They're also doing the call to arms, enduring cry thing. It isn't really as effective for this character because the only real thing it does is that it's an extra free heal that is passively going off occasionally. That's the only reason I have it on them, but when they aren't really taking advantage of it like my other characters do, they aren't doing a automation immortal call or anything like that. They're just using this as a free occasional heal because they aren't really set up for any other kind of real mitigation with how this build is set up. On my weapon, I have my Summon Stone Golem being supported by Minion Knife and Meat Shield. That way, our Golem can tank for us a little. So this is a nice little setup to have if you're going to do a squishy character like this. And even though you didn't really see me using it in the gameplay showcase, this is something this is just a fun setup to use. Having lightning tendrils supporting cast while channeling to do lightning warp with less duration. Because what that does is that if you don't put it too far away from you, then you can kind of zoom through an area. And it is not something that I do to actually try to clear or anything like that. It's usually something if I die, then I can get back to where I died faster. Which is my main use case for this. But it's a very fun little skill combination that I recommend if you happen to be doing a lightning damage anyway. And then Assassin's Mark, because this is actually important for the build because it gives us a higher chance of dealing critical damage. And like I said, the way the build is set up, if we're dealing critical damage, then whatever our tornado has been converted to is dealing all of that damage directly to the enemy as though they didn't have any resistance to it at all. But so this is something that I don't really use it all the time because we can see that our spell crit chance is actually very good without it. So it's not you need it's necessary with the way this character is set up. But against bosses, every little bit helps. And in terms of gear, this character really isn't wearing anything all that crazy. Got a energy shield that gives some good intelligence and spell damage, and that I crafted some life onto. But as you can see, we're not doing well defensively. So we don't have as many resistances as we should. We're not getting as much life as we could. We don't have as much armor and energy shield as would be preferable at this stage in the game. Everything we're wearing is okay. I crafted on the energy shield on the helmet just so we could satisfy the mastery, so that way we get the additional bonus to our body armor because of the fact that our helmet, gloves, and boots all have armor and energy shield on them. But that's the only reason for that. I think this was an experiment to try to maximize strength and intelligence, because actually, I don't think I really went into. So it's just whichever is lower. So by having your strength and intelligence almost identical to each other, you get the bonus. That's where you get your bonus from. So we're getting 300%, over 300%, because our strength and intelligence are almost right next to each other. So if our strength was only 100, then we'd only be getting 100%. But because they're both near 350, we're able to get a very large amount of additional crit chance, which is why our spell crit is so high. Despite the fact that Tornado of Turbulence itself has a very low critical strike chance, only 5%. Yeah, so as of this one, by the time that this video and the next video are up, I should have made sure to include the link to the build, or to all of my builds, in the descriptions, which I forgot to do with with the first video, but you know, like it should be there by the time this video was up. Yeah, but that is my Tornado of Turbulence build. Like I said, you know, like it's not like this build itself isn't powerful because I'm using Tornado of Turbulence. It's powerful because of the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor is what everything comes down to this this Ascendancy class. I guess it's free damage that no other Ascendancy in the game offers. So it's the most new player friendly thing that you can do if you're someone who is either new to the game or has been out of it for a while. And you know, maybe like, you know, when you played last time you played Path of Exile, maybe there weren't even Ascendancies in the game. Or like, you know, when they added the Ascendancies to the game, you only ever like tried one or two, and like, you know, this is your first time like hearing about like how nutso some of these can be. Yeah, but I highly recommend like, you know, like using Inquisitor if you are someone who's just trying to like dip your toes into Path of Exile. Definitely very easy way to make some good progress without the need to like look at like really like highly specialized guides or anything like that. Anyways, for me, found these tips useful. Appreciate doing all YouTube stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, and maybe share with a friend. Until next time, be Victus, Fires of the Maris, and bye.